We will be starting in 10 minutes. Participants are requested to mute their mics to avoid any disturbances. Thank you.
Greetings everyone. We at SEDSKCT are very happy for presenting COSMORENA 2020. Thank you all for your participation. Today is the first talk of the series Astronomy, Astrophotography and Post-Processing. A small information regarding certificates. At the end of each talk, feedback forms will be circulated. There are totally 4 talks in Astronomy, Astrophotography and Post-Processing series. Certificates will be provided only for those who attend all the talk of the series. Please use registered mail ID in all feedback forms to avoid problems regarding receiving certificates. I again welcome you all to COSMORENA 2020. Today's talk will be on Passion of Times Astrophotography. Now, I would like to welcome our honorable guest speaker, Mr. Ajay Talwar. A little spark may burst into a flame. That's what happened in the life of our guest speaker. Since observing the Halley's comet in 1986, the spark for the love of space and the night sky broke out, and our speaker, Mr. Ajay Talwar, went on to become one of the very first astrophotographers in India. Mr. Ajay Talwar now represents India in international group of photographers called The World at Night. Now, I request you, sir, to share your experience and also the way how you realized your dream of becoming an astrophotographer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And I'm very happy to be in this webinar. Um, there are so many people joined in from various parts of the country, and I would like to share some of my experiences and try to answer some of the questions that participants may have regarding astrophotography. So let me begin my presentation by counting a few milestones that I have undergone in astrophotography. So my journey in astrophotography started with this particular photograph. This is a photograph that I took in on 16th August 1987. There was a first quarter moon, and it was going to pass in front of the star cluster Pleiades. We had been preparing for timing the occultations of the so many stars in Pleiades for so many days before, but on the day of the occultation, I left everything and started photographing. There was a French gentleman who was here in India for a 3-year deputation, and he and I we just hooked up our film camera behind the Carl Zeiss telescope of the planetarium at New Delhi, and we started shooting. So the photograph came out so nice, and I was hooked for life. I in 1990 I went to Bombay to join Air India, and over there I joined the Amateur Astronomers Association Bombay, and I started astrophotography from a place, very dark place called Wangari. And in these 3 photographs on the left, you can see I used to do photography manually. You can see that there is a camera attached to the telescope on top of it, and the hand is actually guiding the telescope slowly to follow the stars, and the astrophotographer is looking through the eyepiece to follow a star. And on the right, you can see one image which I clicked at the Sun Temple, Konark. Uh, in the sky, you can see the bright Venus and bright Jupiter. So I was interested in landscape photography from the beginning. This particular photograph of Venus and Jupiter was taken in 1995. If you guys remember, comet Hyakutake was very bright for a couple of weeks, and I photographed it over the skies of Wangari on film. And the tail of comet Hyakutake was so long and really mesmerizing. One of the first bright comet that I encountered. But of course, everybody would remember the famous comet Hale-Bopp, which was around in the skies at the same time as Hyakutake. But Hale-Bopp remained in the skies for far longer than Hyakutake. So this was another comet which I photographed in my early years of astrophotography. Well, the passion hasn't stopped, and now it's been more than 3 decades since I have been photographing the skies, and it still excites me. I always go out and try to photograph the sky in various ways, like uh, landscapes and deep sky. And even my family has joined in, and they also like to do a little bit of astrophotography. My wife is quite involved in astrophotography as much as me, and we all together go on trips uh, to dark places in the hills in the Himalayas for astrophotography. One of the great milestones in my journey was when Institut Français Hollande organized an exhibition called Fête de la Photo, and this exhibition was organized in 8 different cities in India. It was organized in Delhi at Connaught Place. There were many photographers, but astrophotography was represented by 3 people. Ajay Talwar, that's me from India, and Thierry Legors and Laurent Lavedar from France. And very appropriately, our photographs were exhibited at Jantar Mantar, very large prints, and it was really fascinating to see our astrophotography from India and France in this iconic location of Jantar Mantar. So here you can see those large prints in Delhi, and it was really fascinating to see people standing in front of these uh, displays and photographing themselves as if they were at that location where the photograph was taken. So it's really heartening, very satisfying. Recently, me and my wife have been photographing the sky out of a plane window, and that's an endeavor which has become very rewarding and fascinating. So this is photography from a plane window is a little difficult. Can somebody report if you are able to see the video and hear the music?
No, sir.
Okay, hold on.
Can see the screen.
What can you see on the screen now?
There is the static picture of Paravion 22nd.
Okay, got it. Got it. I will just change. If somebody can report now, you can see.
Yes.
Thank you. So this is a recent video that we shot, me and my wife, out of a plane window. This aircraft was flying on a polar route from San Francisco to Delhi, and there was a huge aurora, very bright in the sky.
Is that a time lapse?
This is a time-lapse photograph. This is a time-lapse movie shot out of a plane window. Okay, I will shift the sharing now onto another application. So this is just a few of my milestone in my journey of astrophotography. I also run a company called Aperture Telescopes, and which makes the largest telescopes in India, Dobsonian telescopes for visual use. You can see some of the telescopes over here, 20-inch, 16-inch, and 12-inch Dobsonian telescopes. And I also conduct a very high quality sky photo trip astrophotography workshop in the Himalayas, which is held 2 times a year. One of my recent milestone was uh, photographing the annular solar eclipse, which happened on 21st June this year. And let me show you a short video of the photography. Me and my family were at a place called Sirsa in Haryana, and we had carried this place. Sirsa is about 300 kilometers from my residence, and I was able to carry many large telescopes and photographed the eclipse in many different ways. Since this was an annular eclipse, and we were able to photograph the chromosphere as well as the corona, is a very satisfying, and usually you're not able to photograph the chromosphere and the corona in a annular solar eclipse, but we were able to do it, and that was very satisfying. And another thing that we captured was really lots of Bailey's beads around the rim. This eclipse was almost total, but not fully covered, and there were a lot of Bailey's beads visible. So this is another great milestone that we covered this year in my journey of astrophotography. The eclipse was broadcast from our location and our telescopes all over the world on a website called timeanddate.com. Well, this pandemic, okay, here's a photo which I'm doing for the entire year. I'm making a NLMA. And this photograph, this particular photograph started, well, I should call it a project. This project started on 10th February, and it is still continuing, and it will continue for the entire year till 10th February 2021. But particularly you can see that right on top of this NLMA, this figure of 8, which is the path of the sun for the entire year, right on top you have the annular solar eclipse of 21st June, which happens to be the solstice day. The meaning of solstice is that the sun will be at its highest altitude at noon, and this is a very unique photograph. I was able to do it. I was able to capture the entire NLMA over my residence at Gurgaon, and I placed the camera at the same angle towards the south and captured the eclipse right on top to insert it. So this photograph will, when completed, will be quite unique, and it will be called a tutelema, because an NLMA which contains an eclipse is called a tutelema. So this project is in progress and will finish in February next year. During the pandemic, Gurgaon was very clear. So many stars could be seen in the early days of pandemic, because there were no industries, no vehicles, no pollution, no sound. The sky was so beautiful, and it was really amazing to see so many stars. And I remember this kind of sky was visible only when I was in my teenage years. But nobody has seen this kind of sky in the recent years. And in April, during the initial days of pandemic, the sky became extremely clear, and I was able to do so much photography right from my home in Gurgaon. Well, today here I am sitting in Gurgaon, and there was a lot of pollution, a lot of smog in the last 15-20 days. But yesterday, the sky was in the daytime was extremely clear blue, and that was very exciting for me. I saw the moon rise in daytime, and I could see it very clearly from Gurgaon. So this is what excites me: blue skies and then turning into starry sky. I'll tell you what else excites me. Uh, Knowledge of what is going to happen in the sky. Like there's an event coming up in next month on 20th December. The two great planets, Jupiter and Saturn, will be close to each other. So, astrophotography, you have to know the events much before. So, what I'm showing you over here on the screen is a calendar of the year 2021, which I am making now and will be completed in a matter of week. And it lists all the events, all the great events that are going to happen day by day on each date of the calendar. So you may like to order this calendar by sending me an email. And that's one of the inspiring things, like Jupiter and Saturn are coming together. If you don't know about it, you will only read it afterwards in papers. But if you are prepared beforehand, then you can go out and photograph it. Well, astrophotography, photography of the night sky, which can be done in many ways. And in this presentation, I'll go over some of the methods, simple methods, convenient methods, and also complicated. Usually, a beginner in astrophotography wants this question answered. I want to start astrophotography. Which telescope should I buy? Well, the answer to that question is you shouldn't buy a telescope at all. You don't need a telescope. The question that is asked is basically an endeavor to photograph deep sky objects. You can see in this slide, in the background, there's a photograph of Horsehead Nebula and Flame Nebula, and people want to photograph this kind of astrophotograph right away. And in this way, to fulfill this desire, the question arises, I want to start astrophotography. Which telescope should I buy? Well, you shouldn't till much later. And then the question also arises, with which telescope can I watch, photograph planets and birds? So this is a very usual question that people come and ask me, and they want to do everything with the same telescope. It's not so. There are different telescopes to do different things. And if you want to have a wide angle deep sky photograph, you don't need a telescope. If you want to photograph a small planetary nebula, then you will require a very long focal length. So there are different requirements for different objects in the sky. Why don't we start simple? Single exposure using just a tripod and camera. Well, here is a photograph, and here is a person, an astrophotographer, with all his equipment. You can see that he has a camera and a tripod and an intervalometer attached to the, and that's all the equipment he requires. And this particular image has also been taken with a similar equipment. And this photograph shows a landscape and a person, and any lay person can identify and recognize this photo even if he is not into astrophotography. So this is the kind of photography that is very simple to conduct, very convenient to conduct, and it does not require much equipment, and is no less striking than any deep sky image. Let me show you another example. This particular photograph has been taken at the Lick Observatory. Lick Observatory is a very old observatory near San Francisco. rather very close to San Jose in the hills. And me and my wife had gone there last year in November. And this is a photograph, a very simple photograph that we took. The camera was placed on a tripod and just one picture, single exposure was given. In the sky, you can see the Pleiades cluster. You can also see the Taurus Hyades cluster. Capella is over here, and numerous other stars in the sky. And the building is very nicely illuminated, and you can see the shadow of me and my wife standing. And we had just placed a small light from the cell phone right on the ground, and to cast a shadow of two of us standing on the building. So this is a striking photo, no less. And it has been clicked with a simple equipment which can be carried anywhere. You could carry that tripod and camera on top of a mountain. You could carry it anywhere. Here is another photograph, a set of two photographs. On the left, these two photographs have been taken at the same time from the same location. And the location was a place called Sarakthal near my residence in Haryana. The picture on the left has been taken with a cell phone. The particular model was Huawei P30 Pro cell phone camera, and it was placed on a tripod, and an exposure was given which the Milky Way and Jupiter was easily exposed. And on the right, you can see a same frame shot with a digital SLR camera. The camera used was Canon 6D, and a 15mm fisheye lens was used. So although the picture on the right shot with a digital SLR camera is good, but you can say that the picture on the left shot with a phone camera is not bad at all. You can compare. So simple equipment, you can still do a lot of astrophotography with simple equipment. In fact, you can just not think about deep sky photography at all if you start to like landscape astrophotography. Here are a couple of other pictures on the left from the Amateur Astronomy Association Delhi. A lot of people had gathered together and gone to this place of Sarakthal, and I was photographing people, their equipment, telescopes, and the sky together in single exposures. So everybody is happy, and these photographs are well appreciated. People with night sky. And here on the right is a picture of my wife with Orion in the sky on a full moon night, and this was shot with the Huawei P30 phone camera. I represent India in the world at night, short form we call it TWAN. This is a association, international association of landscape astrophotographers, and there are about 44 photographers from all over the world, various countries like Germany, France, USA, Australia, and Spain, and many other countries. And I represent India, and I want to photograph the nice places, historical and geographical landmarks of India like Himalayas and Great White Desert of Rann. So you can go and check out my gallery on the TWAN website. The website address is given in this slide, twannight.org/Talwar. And there are wonderful pictures shot at various places in India in my gallery. Here is another picture. Here is a picture which was published on TWAN, and it was appreciated worldwide. Taj Mahal on a full moon night. And again, this was shot with a simple tripod and camera. This is a star trail picture. In the background, you can see the star trails of Orion constellation. And the duration of this picture is about 90 minutes. Agra is a well-lit city, and there's a lot of smog over there also in Agra. So it's not easy to photograph in Agra because you can't see many stars in the sky. But still, I was able to make this picture with just a tripod and camera. Um, because it's a simple equipment. I could carry it. I was actually at a vantage point on top of a ruin, and I was able to carry my tripod and camera and take very short exposures and make them into a star trail. So a tripod and camera can do wonders in astrophotography. Here is another picture. This was shot at Qutub Minar, Delhi, and you can see star trails visible in between the trees. Again, this was a very smoggy night. Not many stars were visible, but I was able to make this image with very short exposures and numerous exposures. Approximately 1,000 exposures went to make this picture. Again, with a tripod and camera. Here is a picture of which made it to the APOD, Astronomy Picture of the Day, a website which is maintained by NASA. And the picture is of the lunar eclipse of 31st January 2018. And on the horizon, you can see the Himalayan Trishul mountain. And this particular eclipse was in progress when the moon was rising on the horizon. And me and my family had located at a very calculated spot. The name of the spot was Benital, and we had calculated it that moon would be rising behind the mountain Trishul, and we had gone there with all our equipment and to photograph this. But this particular photograph has been taken with just a tripod and a camera. Another example of TWAN style photography. This photograph has been taken at Stockholm. The name of the place was Riddarholmen, and you can see a number of church spires and the first quarter moon in the blue sky. Well, I hope I am able to inspire a few into this kind of photography using very simple and very convenient equipment, the tripod and the camera, long exposures. Let me also delve in photographing star trails. This particular image has been shot by my wife at San Francisco. You can see the Golden Gate Bridge. This is probably the most photographed bridge in the world, and here the camera is pointed towards the north, and exposures were continued for an approximate duration of 90 minutes. So this is a city location. It is not very dark. So you have to give short exposures. There's a lot of light, bright light coming from the bridge, the street lights. So you have to check the exposure. Like you have to give an exposure for, let's say, 2 seconds or 3 seconds, maybe try an exposure of 5 seconds. And if you see that the histogram is spiking on the right side, then you reduce your exposure. So let us say that the correct exposure comes to 4 seconds. Then you are supposed to keep on clicking a 4-second exposures for as long as you can manage. So here in this particular image, the exposures, 4-second exposures were continued for 90 minutes. So 4-second exposure means that in 1 minute, there were 15 exposures taken. And in 90 minutes, there will be 1,500 exposures taken. So in this, to make this particular image, 1,500 exposures were blended together to form star trails over the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. Now, this particular star trail image has been shot from a place called Devstal Observatory. And on the horizon, you can see the Nanda Devi mountain. This is Nanda Devi and this is Nanda Devi East mountain. And this is a dark location. There were not many bright lights. So the exposure in this case was 40 seconds. In the previous image, the exposure in the star trail image was just 4 seconds because it was a bright area. But since this particular area was very dark, and in fact the Himalayan mountain had no lights at all, the correct exposure according to the histogram came out to be 40 seconds. So 40-second exposure were repeated one after the other, and kept on clicking till about 3 hours. So the number of exposures in this case was far less because the ambient light at this location was very less. So you see the difference. This is a city location. The exposure to make a star trail would be very less, very short, let's say 1, 2, 3 or 4 seconds, something like that. And here there's a dark location. The exposures can be very long because the light is very less.
Sir, is this all manually done or do you use external control equipment for doing the continuous exposure like that, 4 second, 40 second?
Once you have decided the correct exposure, you are supposed to automate it. A very simple device called the intervalometer, an external intervalometer, will help you do it. There is one way that you can put your camera on the multiple exposure mode and then press the trigger with a tape or something so that it is pressed continuously. But a far better idea is to purchase an intervalometer, which is like a wired remote. So intervalometers are available for about 1,500 rupees on Amazon, and you will have to buy an intervalometer according to your camera model, because the jack which goes in the camera, every camera will have a different jack, like Canon, Nikon and others will have different. So you're supposed to buy an intervalometer according to your camera model, and then you can program any number of exposures in that intervalometer. So at the end of this presentation, I will share my email address. So if you are looking for more information on intervalometer, you can send me an email and I will send you a tutorial for the intervalometer. Now what intervalometer does, there's a wire which attaches to the camera and it will shoot continuous exposures of whatever you have decided. Whether you have decided 4 seconds or 10 seconds or 15 seconds, it will keep on shooting, and you can also program the number of exposures. People can unmute, all the participants can unmute and ask questions, but may I request everybody, whenever they ask a question, to identify yourself and where are you located. That will be really nice. I hope I have answered your question, the previous participant.
Yes, sir. Thank you. This is Ramesh from Bangalore. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Good to hear from you, Ramesh. Thank you. Okay, this particular image is again a star trail image, and I have named this picture as Pillars of Creation. Well, the observatory was being made over here. The largest observatory in India is situated at Devsal in Nainital district, and a 3.6 meter telescope is operating over there now. This particular image was taken in 2012 when the observatory was had just started construction. So I had programmed my camera for photographing all night, and you can see over here that the pole star has rotated by 135 degrees in the matter of entire night. So the camera was photographing the skies for about slightly less than 10 hours, and 800 images have been combined to make these polar star trails. And in this case, the individual exposure was for 40 seconds. You can see some iridium flares and meteors also pass through the night in the process. Mini star trails. What do I mean by that? Well, in the cities, the sky is so bright that you can hardly see any stars. Now, here is a typical equipment setup that we use. This is my wife Neelam, and there are two cameras lined up, and very simple. Among the two of us, we can carry about 3 or 4 setups like tripod and camera. And what do we do? So here is Manhattan, New York, and it is probably the brightest city in the world. There are so many lights and all pointing upwards. So you can see over here that all the streets and all the buildings are so bright, brightly lit. And still we were able to capture some stars in the sky above Manhattan. How? Well, the exposure in this case was just 2 seconds, because the sky was so bright, and exposure more than 2 seconds would overwhelm the buildings. They would be overexposed. But in 2 seconds, you don't get stars. You don't capture stars in the sky. So what do? Well, in this case, in this particular case of this photograph, we shot 12 exposures of 2 seconds, resulting in about, let's say, about 30 seconds worth of. Then we blended those 12 exposures to reveal Orion constellation above Manhattan. So this is what I call mini star trails. Let me give you another example. This is Sydney Harbour Bridge, and again a very lighted area, very bright. So the exposure cannot be more than, I don't remember in this case, it was probably 3 or 4 seconds. But when you join about 6 to 8 or 10 or 12 exposures, then the stars appear in the sky and you can fill up the sky with mini star trails. Another endeavor you can accomplish using just the tripod and camera is make a panorama. So this particular image has been shot at a place called Hatu in the Himalayas. Hatu is a peak near a small town of Narkanda, about 70 kilometers from Shimla. And me and my family had camped over here in the month of September a couple of years back. And in the middle of the night, I had shot. Is there a question? In the middle of the night, I had shot this panorama made of 55 images. So on the horizon, 15 images have been taken and the camera was raised, and then 15 images on towards the left, then one more level of 15 images, and right on top 10 images were taken. Now this panorama spans about 180 degrees by about 80 degrees. So this is a really wide area of the sky, and it has been captured in 55 frames. It took about an hour to make this picture, because each exposure was 30 seconds. I made 2 exposures, and then I moved leftwards and then rightwards and then again leftwards and right on top. So this is a panorama made from 55 images. But the point I want to make is that this picture has been made using simple equipment of tripod and camera. Here is another kind of picture that you can do using a fisheye lens. This is an all sky image. The particular lens that I use is a fisheye lens of 8 mm. Canon has this lens, very beautiful lens, and you can capture the entire sky if you point the camera at zenith. So this is the horizon, and this is the northern horizon, and right over here is the southern horizon, and of course this is the western horizon and eastern horizon. And the camera was pointing towards the zenith and photographing. Um, this particular location is in Stockholm, a place called Gamlastan, right in the middle of the town. And on the right towards the north, you can see the Nobel Museum, Nobel Academy. And this is a very iconic place, Gamlastan in Stockholm. So again over here, it is a very lighted place, and you can give in this case the exposures were for about 6 or 7 seconds, and this is a 90-minute photograph, and lots of exposures were taken using this fisheye lens. Another representation of the same area. This is a panorama, so 360 degrees by 180 degrees. Entire sky, entire earth, entire horizon it is at the same location of Gamlastan in Stockholm. And this panorama I'm going to show you in another style. This particular style is called Little Planet. So if you notice carefully, this same panorama has been turned into this particular two images where it shows 360 degrees by 180 degrees, but the style is different. It's called Little Planet. Again, the point that I want to emphasize and make is that it has been shot using a tripod and camera. Here is another 360 by 180 Little Planet panorama right from the front of my house in Gurgaon. Gurgaon is a really lighted place, and it's very difficult to see stars over here. But in the initial days of the pandemic, sky became very clear, and I went out in the park, which is in front of my house, and shot this panorama. Again, using a simple equipment of tripod and camera. A little planet image from my terrace showing moon and 3 planets in the sky. Well, I am mostly showing photographs, and my idea is to inspire some of you. Maybe you will take up astrophotography in a simple way. I would also go on and talk a little about deep sky photography, which requires very complicated equipment. So the idea over here is to inspire people to take up astrophotography in any which way you want. Towards that end, if you have any questions at any time, please unmute yourself and I will be happy to answer. Spend more time on that particular image if you like. May I also ask Sai whether you will be recording this session?
Yes, sir. It's being streamed in YouTube.
Oh, so this session will be available for viewing later also, Sai?
Yes, sir. It will be available.
Oh, that's very nice, Sai. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Sir, we have
Hello, sir.
questions.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sir. I'm Sunil from Raukla, Odisha.
Hello, Sunil.
I'm asking that, sir, have you ever been to Hanle, Ladakh for the Milky Way photography? There is a big observatory, IAO.
That's right. I have been to IAO Hanle about 11 times, and I have also installed a telescope over there, which is of 28 inch. In the later part of my presentation, I'll be showing a video of installing that telescope over there. So if you have any particular question, you can ask after that slide.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Thank
Sunil?
you.
Yeah. Okay, here is another 360 by 180 degrees. Well, this is not of the stars, but it is of Times Square. So, mm, okay, another endeavor is time-lapse photography. Again, the emphasis is that it can be accomplished using very simple equipment, very convenient equipment of tripod and camera. You probably will require a camera which can shoot long exposures, and you will probably require a wide angle lens more than a normal or a tele lens. Wide angle lenses provide for very good night landscapes and time lapse. So in order to, I'm going to show you an example, and Sunil, here comes the example from Hanle, Ladakh, and it shows time lapse of the sky as well as the installation of that telescope, the 700 telescope that I installed over there a couple of years back. Let's take a look at this video. So this is Mount Saraswati below, where you have all the telescopes installed of IAO, Indian Astronomical Observatory. You can also see a lot of solar panels, the small dome in which I installed the 700 telescope. Are you able to hear the music of the video?
Uh, yes, sir. We are able to hear it, but it's too light, sir.
It's very feeble.
Loud?
It's very feeble, sir.
Oh, oh, I'm sorry, I pressed. So here is a section where time-lapse photography comes, and this particular time-lapse photography is from day to night, which is one of the most difficult, but it is accomplished using simple equipment. Only the technique is complicated, but the equipment is simple. And you can see Milky Way rising over the dome, and now the moon will rise from the left. So again, time-lapse photography from day to night, which is called the holy grail of time-lapse photography. You can see Jupiter appear in the evening sky, and night has fallen completely, and Milky Way is rising behind the observatory, the galactic center towards Sagittarius. And this was a telescope which was installed in the dome. This is a particular telescope that I installed over there. And here are some photographs taken with the telescope. Jupiter, the Swan Nebula, Eagle Nebula, and Trifid Nebula, and Jupiter. I would like to show you another example of time-lapse photography, and this particular example is from a place called Munchiari in Uttarakhand, very close to the Panchachuli peaks. The Panchachuli peaks are, you can see them in the video over here. This is the highest Panchachuli 2. Very nice place. And we had gone to trek to a place called Thamdi Kund and stayed over there for 3 nights and shot these sequences of this time lapse. This particular video contains day to night and night to day sequences. This particular video was made at Munchiari and Thamdi Kund in the month of February, when Orion and that part of the Milky Way is very prominent in the sky. The star that you can see in this sequence is Vega, and this is a particularly beautiful sequence where you can see the Panchachuli 2 highest peak, and slowly the moon is rising from the east and casting a little light on the peak, and the peak becomes visible slowly. And soon after the moonrise, the dawn comes. In this particular sequence, you will be able to see many meteors in the sky. Now you can see the moonlight falling on the peaks, top of the peaks, and slowly it will turn into daylight. Well, webinars are getting very popular these days, and every day there are so many webinars happening, and a lot of people are from all over the place. You can sit together without actually being together. But there are some problems associated with webinars. Like I find that astrophotography cannot be whatever picture that is on my screen and the picture that is being transmitted to your screen, there may be a lot of difference and it may not be high resolution. Moreover, today I am finding this problem of sound not being transmitted. Although this particular video, the Five Peaks of Panchachuli, had good music, which I was able to hear, but it may not have been transmitted to all the participants. So one particular solution comes to mind that you can see this section later on YouTube when it is uploaded. So lots of good things about webinars and a couple of bad things also are there. Let me continue on to what everybody wants to do is deep sky photography. Well, let me give you a little bit of tips what is involved in deep sky photography. Now, deep sky photography, there are so many deep sky objects in the sky, like galaxies, which are very small, and planetary nebula, which are also very small. Then you have some emission nebulae, reflection nebulae, which are of various sizes. Then you have Andromeda galaxy, which is one of the very large objects, deep sky objects in the sky, North American nebula. So what I'm trying to say over here is that there are deep sky objects of various sizes in the sky. Like if you consider the nebulosity of Barnard Loop, which is in Orion, which is such a large deep sky object that it encompasses the entire Orion constellation. So you have objects, deep sky objects, which are very small, and you have deep sky objects which are very large. So small objects will require a longer focal length, and large objects will require a larger field of view given by the smaller focal length. So this is one consideration when you want to start off in deep sky astrophotography. What focal length will you start with? So here in this series of pictures, I want to show that this is the camera and a 200 mm lens is installed in front of the camera to photograph large objects like Andromeda galaxy, like Orion Nebula, and many other nebulosity areas which are, so this 200 mm lens will capture 10 degrees of the sky. So this is one consideration. If you increase the focal length, so to let's say 500 mm, then you will only photograph area of the sky which is 4 degrees. So the focal length increases and the field of view decreases. So as you increase the focal length, the field of view decreases, but the problems increase. Like it's very simple. Like if you are shooting in a game, like a game of cricket, you're sitting on the edge of the field and you want to photograph the entire stadium. You will have to use a wide angle lens. But if you want to photograph just the bowler or the batsman, you will have to use a 600 mm lens or a 800 mm lens or even more. But then a tripod becomes necessary. Similarly, in this case, if you keep on increasing the focal length, the equatorial mounts needs to be sturdier and sturdier. Nobody thinks of this. The mount is as important as the telescope that you will be using to photograph it. In fact, mount is more important because the mount will provide stability, no vibration. It will be able to center the object very precisely, and finally it will be able to follow the object precisely. These are four major functions of an equatorial mount. But an equatorial mount on its own will not be able to accurately follow an object if you are giving an exposure of, let's say, 5 minutes or even more, 10 minutes. Then another telescope has to be placed on the same mount, which will guide the mount to the exact speed of the object. You see, any mount that you buy will have some problems. At some or the other time, it will either move slow or fast, and then the stars and the deep sky object will get trailed. So here you have, let's take a look at the middle picture. You have a imaging camera and you have a guiding camera. So this particular telescope on the left is attached with a small CCD camera, and it is connected to a computer, and that computer is controlling the mount. If the mount moves a little fast, the controller asks the mount to go a little slow, and if the mount is moving slower, it speeds it up, so that in effect the starlight from the star remains on the same pixel in the imaging camera. So deep sky photography is slightly complicated. You need to guide as well as image at the same time. So equatorial mounts come in various varieties. Some are portable and some are very heavy duty and some are so big that you can't travel with them. This particular mount is EQ6 Atlas from the company Orion, and you can travel with it, and it's a very reliable mount. But I also use another heavy duty mount, CGE Pro, which is very difficult to transport. I also use some portable equatorial mounts which I can carry in a backpack. But then those portable equatorial mounts will not be able to take focal length more than 100 mm. So these are the nitty-gritties and these are the problems associated with deep sky photography. Here is a example of an equipment. This is a 14-inch telescope, and the camera has been installed in front of the telescope. The secondary mirror was removed, and a hyperstar with the camera was installed. So what is the benefit of putting the camera in front of the telescope? The focal ratio becomes very fast. This system will work at f1.9. So initially, when talking about deep sky photography, I spoke about focal length, then I spoke about mount, and now I want to speak a little bit about the focal ratio. So usually telescopes will be, refractor telescopes will be of the focal ratio f5 or f6 or f7, and camera lenses will also be in the same range unless you buy a really expensive camera like which are going up to f4 or f2.8. But here is a system which is f1.9, 14-inch f1.9, and what difference does it make is that deep sky can be photographed in a matter of 15 or 10 seconds. So that is the advantage of faster focal ratio. So when you want to get into deep sky photography, first of all, you have to consider the focal length, then you have to consider the mount, and finally the focal ratio. Here is an example of deep sky photography. This particular photograph of the Rosette Nebula was clicked by the participants of my workshop, Sky Photo Trip 13, and it shows great detail in the reflection nebula. You have the star cluster in between, then a whole lot of nebulosity, as well as you can see some Bok globules and dark channels and dark patterns inside the nebula, and you can also see various colored stars. So no doubt deep sky photography is very rewarding, but there is a huge knowledge to be gained, equipment to be gained, and finally, location of deep sky photography is also very important. You need to go to very dark places for the best pictures. Here is another example of deep sky photography. You can see the Bodes and Cigar Galaxy in Ursa Major. North American Nebula is a very large deep sky object, and this particular photograph was taken with a 400 lens on the mounted on the Atlas mount. Here is another deep sky photograph of the Lagoon Nebula and Trifid Nebula, which was shot in two years back. And at that time, the planet Mars was also in the vicinity. In fact, the ecliptic passes right in the middle of these two nebula. The path of all the planets goes through. So you can see at some of the other time, various planets will be passing in between the Trifid and the Lagoon Nebula. So in this case, Mars was in the vicinity, and you can see lots of nebulosity. This is the galactic center over here. So again, a deep sky photograph taken with a 400 lens. And finally, the kind of astrophotography which requires the maximum focal length is the surface of a planet. If you want to capture the surface of Jupiter, Mars, or Saturn, you will have to employ a focal length of about 3000, 4000, 6000 mm. So here are some examples. In this, you can see the surface of Jupiter with the great red spot, as well as the shadow of a satellite of Jupiter falling. Here is the satellite, and the shadow of that satellite is falling on the surface of Jupiter. You can see Saturn and Mars over here. So this kind of photography, when you want to photograph the surface of a planet, requires maximum focal length, but then you don't need to guide because you're shooting a video. Planets are actually very bright, and you can shoot a video, and in a matter of 1 minute you will capture about 3000 images, which can be stacked and blended and enhanced. So only the focal length is important. Rest all is relatively easy in planet surface photography. Another example of planet surface photography. This is a big mosaic of moon that I created about 5-6 years back, and it was shot with a 3000 lens, but the entire 3000 telescope, but the entire moon would not fit inside the field of view of 3000 So it had to be shot in 24 parts, and they were all stitched together to make a very large image of the moon. And this particular image is hanging in my living room, as large as 6 feet by 6 feet. So this is my presentation describing various methods of astrophotography, and I do hope I was able to inspire some of you into taking up various kind of astrophotography that are available to you. Thank you very much for attending. Okay, I was well within my time also, and I will be happy to take questions of any kind on all kinds of astrophotography.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, I am Adarsh from Chhattisgarh.
Hello,
I
Adarsh.
had a, I had a few questions regarding your session. It was really wonderful and delightful to see all those images.
Thank
It's
you.
it really feels as if I was there and I felt every image like I was there, and it really gave me so much happiness, really. So,
Wow,
sir,
thank you.
Sir, like when you do stacking, what software do you use for stacking up the exposures to shots? Like I also do stacking, but when I stack the images of different second exposures, I get grains in the final processed image sometimes. So
Are you talking about deep sky photography or star trail photography?
yeah, I am specific to star trails photography.
Okay, if you find that there are grains and noise in single exposures, about 100 exposures or so will eliminate all the noise that is there in the single exposure. So you should aim to click more than 100 pictures and without any gaps. So you should
Yes, sir.
program your intervalometer so to shoot continuously.
Yes, sir.
Even if you have a 4 or 5 second gap in between your start
Hmm.
rails, they will look bad.
Yes, sir.
So to answer your question that there is a lot of noise, you should stack about 100 images or more, and then the noise will reduce. I have a few more tips for you. You should use a software called Star Stacks, STARSTAX. This software is available for free, and it is one of the wonderful software that you can stack the star trail images from. Also, when you are shooting star trails, you don't want many stars in your image.
Yes, sir.
You want less number of stars. So towards that side, you should keep the ISO towards the lower side. Let's
Okay,
say
sir.
400 or 200, 400 or something like that, so that you don't have many stars and the stars will retain their color.
Yes.
If you are shooting with 1600 or 3200 ISO, if you're shooting star trails with 1600 or 3200 ISO, all the stars will become white and your photograph will not be interesting. So you
Yes.
should keep less ISO, gaps should be minimal, and more than 100 pictures and you will get a good picture. And always try to include some landscape in your picture, and also make sure that if you're including a tree,
Yes.
that full tree should be there.
Mm.
Means sometimes you will see that only the top portion of the tree is there. That photo looks the composition is not good. So you should try to compose your picture very nicely. I know it is very difficult to compose a picture at night because you can hardly
Okay.
see anything. So you will have to take a test exposure and see the composition.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, also, like I was,
Please give chance to other people. There are a lot of questions.
yes,
So,
yes, of course,
yeah,
of course.
thank you.
Hello, sir. I'm hello.
Yes.
Sir, I don't have too much money to buy the equipment. So, how can I go for a remote telescope?
Remote telescope.
Yes, sir.
There are lots of remote telescopes available on the internet. You can go for uh, what is that? Zoom in? No. Well, I am not much aware of remote telescope because I've never used any. Uh, I use my own equipment, and if you don't have much money, you should go for a crop frame from Canon. You can also, I have many times used a second-hand camera also, which are available for very reasonable price. So you can go for second-hand camera, go and check that camera, and if you find the condition good, then buy it like that.
Sir, for the normal photography, you get equipment on rent, right? So likewise, do we get the mount and the automated equipment on rent for astrophotography?
No, there is no company which provides uh, astrophotography equipment on rent in India, unfortunately. Cameras and tripod and lenses and long lenses and wide angle lenses are all available for rental, but not any mount. Okay, I will take questions in the chat also.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I am Nikhil Mageshwar from Kerala.
Hello, Nikhil.
Sir, what is the minimum number of frames that we use to stacking to get a good result?
In what kind of photograph?
Deep sky, sir.
You see, it also depends on the kind of camera that you are using, whether it is less noise or more noise. But a figure of 100 exposures will give you good quality.
Okay, sir.
Usually people try to go for 15-20 images, and they want to photograph many different objects in one night. So they will shoot one object 15 frames, second object 15 frames, third object 15 frames, and in the process all the pictures will be useless. But if you go for one object 100 frames and then shift to another object, then you will get high quality pictures.
Sir, we use the same number of pictures in dark, bias, and flat frames?
No. Dark and bias and flat frames can only, you can click 10 or 15 and that will be sufficient.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Somebody in the chat has asked me, what is your email address? So I am typing in the chat window. My email address is Ajay Talwar 80@yahoo.com. So you can copy it from the chat window and keep it with you, because the chat window will go immediately when you leave the session. There's a question in the chat. Do you pre-plan what kind of images you are going to take before going to the location? Well, Jeevitha, I planned extensively. I make a photo plan much before I go. So for that purpose, I will see what time the moon is rising and what constellations are there in the sky, and what kind of Milky Way when it is rising, when it is setting. And so I really pre-plan my outings quite a lot. And in fact, I make a sheet of what to photograph so that I don't forget on location. Tanmay has asked, I am an astrophotographer too. I am in class 10th. I normally photograph with 50 mm lens because I don't. Oh, okay. Because I don't have GoTo, I am sharing pics with you. Please give your opinion. Oh, yeah, there's a little bit, Tanmay, there's a little bit of elongation in your stars, but pretty good. Well done. This photograph of Orion is nice. Maybe you could improve your picture by reducing the aperture a little bit. If you are shooting full open, you may reduce the aperture by 1 or 2 stops so that your stars become sharper. But very nice. Thank you. Pratyush has asked a general question: how much memory size of each video it takes? Well, in my camera, I use storage cards of 128 GB. Well, Sunil has said last picture of the slide of the moon was breathtaking. Thank you, Sunil. Okay, hello from Mauritius. Do you require permissions to take pictures in different countries? What about safety issues too? Well, permissions, if you are photographing somebody's private property, then you require permission. But night sky is nobody's property, so you can take photographs. What about safety issues? Well, safety issues are at night time you can have problems with animals. You can have problems with weather. So it's good to go in with a couple of other people, like 2 or 3 could join up and avoid this safety issue. But what particularly safety issue are you referring to? You can maybe elaborate. Okay, there's a question. Can you please give me your email address? My email address is ajaytalwar80@yahoo.com. Kushal has asked, which telescope was used for the moon shot? It was a Meade 12-inch telescope with a focal length of 3000 mm, which was used for the moon shot. But the entire field of view, the entire moon was not fitting in the field of view. So moon was clicked in 24 parts, and